How's it going, everyone? Welcome. Julier Gonzalez here. So, let's take a look at the containing block, but by looking is at the CSS spec. So, over the past couple videos, I explore is thanks to Josh Comewa, a software engineer that previously worked at Khan Academy and Gatsby, and he currently now is building this course platform where he teach things like CSS and React for web developers. So I really love about these things. It showed me in an interactive way how do I actually make sense of all of this, right? So how can I create these particular documents? How can I style them and add some interactivity to this? So because I want to look at the source of truth of these specs, or where all of this come from. This is why I am starting to look at the CSS spec. And this is what I'm going to do in today's video. By reading is at the positioning layout and actually make sense of the CSS, and exploring is, for example, here at this, right? Understanding the CSS spec. Remember that at the end of the day, oh, look at this. You don't need to be a programmer or a CS major to understand the CSS specification. You don't need to be over 18 or have a bachelor degree. You just need to be very pedantic, very persistent, and very thorough. And I really, very pedantic. Very pedantic, very persistent, and very throughout. Instead of describing this, I will say you need to have the desire, genuine desire to go into this. A specification is not a manual. There is no excuse for badly written prose, and please complain if you find some. But specs do target a specific audience. And this is now looking at what the G. David Eisenberg have here. What? It works. This works. This work about this site. So he have now online tutorials on Korean, Russians, Modern Greek. Okay, where I have been, right? This site has not been updated frequently, so most of my web work goes to my website at work at Evergreen Valley College. Evergreen Valley College. Most recently, I have been doing work with Open Document. And it's interesting, okay? Cat code. And free and open file format for electronic office document. You can see my work here. You can also see the material for the course I teach at Evergreen College here as well. That's interesting. Evergreen Valley College, San Jose, 1975. Begin your journey. Connect with a counselor, class schedule, basic need research, and this is it. So what is this? Discover your passion at AVC. Arts and media, behavioral science and humanity, business, health plus human services, industrial technology and transportation, and STEAM. Industrial tech. This is all of the things that now universities are wants to prepare you for the in industry. So what is relevant in the market? Hey, are you gonna show off yourself, or are we going to study how we behave, or how do we trade, or how do we keep healthy, or how to send stuff from one place to another, and how to keep track of them, right? Or go into the physics. So understanding is not the nature. So feature video like this,
I'm a professor here at Evergreen Valley College. I am in the CAD department, computer-aided drafting and design. There's 3 softwares mainly that I teach. One of them is AutoCAD, the other one is Inventor, and SolidWorks. And what makes it exciting is that I have a hands-on approach. Most of my teaching is through demonstrations and stuff that I've learned in industry as an engineer.
I chose Evergreen Valley College because they offered more CAD classes than
Why do they have to cut him, bro? Anyway.
Than a lot of the other schools that I looked at. A degree in CAD would help me in my current job because I work with lots of drawings and files that are produced on CAD programs that help to run automated machines.
I looked up schools, and this was one of the few schools that actually offered classes. Definitely nice to learn something new, especially something that I wanted to pursue originally before I started my my career in welding. So coming in here, I was really interested. Very engaging when you take the class. You do learn a lot off the start.
I want to reach out to those students, those young students that are eager to learn, that are, inquisitive, are curious about stuff. They want to learn the CAD and develop their own ideas.
Okay, so I get the idea, right? If you're not for EVC, I wouldn't have continued my education. So now with a doctorate, I work with inmates helping change their life trajectory. Okay, so it is a college, Yerba Buena Road, San Jose, California. So he's working on that, on this college, you might think of this university, but they don't call themselves university, They just call this, exactly, they call it college. So, okay, he's working at that college, right? HTML and style sheet, so this is part of all of his works. When good image go bad, HTML, creating forms in HTML. Oh my god, creating forms in HTML, bro. And they say something that is, I laugh because I laugh because sending the form one line input, right? Because exactly, so working with this kind of thing, right, to send data. Okay, subscribe for, and then you send the data, right, and they give you back for this. Okay, I didn't expect to be here. You tried it, right? Okay, that's something interesting here. You can send this, send data, or doing something like this. Start over and check boxes, and how to work with check boxes. Exactly, how to select multiple one of them using a form, right? Check boxes continue. A couple examples: select menu with a select, right? So I want to send only this one possible titles, right? Or a menu, select menu, size and multiple. Select menus, test the form, size 3. Okay, this is for auto generating that, and then text areas and resetting a form, right? And the summary here. Again, this is okay. HTML form table contents. Okay. I didn't expect to be so simple on this. Using the object document model, CSS tips, and so on and so forth. But again, the focus on today's video is to read the spec, understand what it, Jesus, index, So as to read the spec, understand who are the author of this, and kind of make sense of what you can do with CSS and the style, and to understand the positioning layout, which is what I'm going to do in today's video, as well as some practical or to get a more hands-on approach on building this or understanding. So that's great. So this is interesting. All right, miscellaneous information, detailed photography, privacy, books, SVG essential, Oasis open document essentials. That's interesting. It doesn't show it, no problem. This is part of his book. And then programming, time zone clocks, PNG encoder, calendar, a simple script, algebraic expression evaluator. Oh, okay, that's something. Dynamic HTML in car game, right? Perp, and there you got it, right? Log file statistic, reading in C. Log file statistic, reading in C. Okay, FE2 quick conversions, and there you go. The web standards projects here. It's a grassroots coalition fighting for a standard which ensures simple, affordable access to web technology for all. Okay, web standards project here. That was not that updated, so it's not recently updated, but you got is this. The last time was updated was in 2013, and yeah, okay, this site is a valid XML HTTP. Okay, get boss via RSS or atoms column or all of this. Okay, so yeah, so he's the author, or at least a software engineer, and has written a useful how to read the spec here from at least a part, and he doesn't have any image or that. So okay, there's the programming and teacher living in San Jose with his cat Marco Polo and Big Tony. He has written book of scalable vector graphics. He also is interested in open document and foreign language learning. So yeah, so he actually wrote. Yeah, he was actually. A specification is not a manual, and this is where this thing comes from. In 2001, so the Bible was not meant to be read but interpreted. And for the wise, I hate definitions. Yeah, man, you just get into will. So so it's like this, right? Learn to read BNF, which is back of norm form, or Bacchus normal forms. Is a compact way to represent the grammar of computer language, and it is being around well forever. Different specifications use different flavors of BNF, Bacchus, nor form, but they all translate long English description into symbolic form. Take this example of what constitutes a sandwich. A sandwich consists of a lower slice of bread, mustard, and mayonnaise. Optional lettuce and optional sliced tomato. 2 to 4 slices on either bologna, salami, or ham, in any combination. 1 or more slices of cheese and a top slice of bread. So a sandwich is made of lower slice that can be, it's a lower slice that can be made of mustard or mayonnaise. Sometimes it can have lettuce or tomato. Yeah, this is the lower slice, and that can also have on top of that is bologna, salami or jams. 2 of them, 2 to 4, all right, cheese, and the top slice, right? So So this constitute part of the definition are listed in order, separated by blanks here. Again, we're going to get ourselves familiar with this. I don't expect to understand that, as he described here, that the Bible wasn't meant to be read, but interpreted. Okay, and that's exactly kind of what I want to dedicate my time and attention in today's video. So he wrote that useful how to read the W3 spec, W3C spec for web designers. If reading technical specification isn't part of your daily fare, I recommend starting with that. Also, if you're totally clueless about CSS, I recommend you first learn what is and how to use it. For a brief tutorial, you can start with the introduction of C2.1, right? So to get yourself familiar with that, all right? To CSS and conformance and selectors, so you get the idea. This is also part of the basics that I described early in previous videos of what is the CSS, what it's made of, and what are the things that are still relevant in 2026, right? So it's important to understand what is the CSS, all right? Property name, exactly. Let's go with the foundations, right? So what is the CSS? The conversions, and all of this is shorthand properties, nodes, and acknowledge, right? Again, pretty basic stuff here, you know? How you can define rules, what are the anatomy of those rules, and then what are the syntax, all right, and the tokenization for that, keywords, exactly, keywords or identifiers, right? Interesting. Character and case, the add rules, yeah, so a couple of statements here, the add rules, the blocks, the rule set declaration, the declaration and properties, comment, and rule for handling parsing errors here, values, okay, and interesting, the percentage, which is part of the values, okay, it can be integers, it can be length, it can be percentage, it can be URLs and URIs, it can be counters, it can be colors, it can be string, and the representations of the style sheets. So what is the character encoding that is going to be used? Interesting. So here's describing is pretty much the basic stuff that I mentioned. The selectors, well, the most common selectors, right? That I use, assign property values, all right, and also the notion of the cascade, all right, the cascading order, as you can see here, right, and the important rules, and so on and so forth, right, and then the media types is that where are you go? So when this document will be present. Okay, one of the most important features of style sheet is that they specify how a document is presented on different medias, screen, paper, speech synthesizers, with braille devices, and so on and so forth. So how this content is going to be present, I only care is visual medias, because that's where you have now the box model. Okay, so this is how it's going to be presented here. Okay, makes a lot of sense. Example of margin, padding, and border, right? main properties. If I look at the box here, so example of margin, padding, and borders, margin properties, padding properties, border properties, and the box model for inline elements in bidirectional content, right? The visual formatting model, okay, which means, hey, what is this thing, and how this format for way of organizing these boxes works, right? So depend of the formatting model you can be is on the OG model, the flow layout, right? The positioning scheme, normal flow, float, and absolute positioning, right? The relationship between elements in the document and external information. But again, first to look at the viewport, something called the containing blocks, right? Got it. Okay, interesting. This is the containing blocks. They say, and then next you have controlling box generation, block, inlines, wrong emboss, display property, positioning schemes. Interesting. A box may be laid out according to 3 positioning scheme, whether it is on the normal flow, block formatting, inline formatting, and relative, right? Whether it's a floats in the float model. Interesting. And then you have now the absolute positioning here. Positioning schemes here. Okay. Positioning scheme. Choosing a positioning scheme, position property. Box, offset, top, right, bottom, and left. And then you have now the normal flow. Boxes in the normal flow belongs to a formatting context, which may be block or inline, but not simultaneously. Okay. And here is when the notion of this formatting context kicks in. Okay. Where, so it's up to the user agent to define is where is the context where all of these boxes are going to interact to each other, right? If this is now the normal flow, for example, right? Or if this is now part of the float, right? A flow box is shift to the left and right on the current line, all right, with the property float. Or is this is now an absolute positioning. All right. And then there it is relationship. Comparing a normal float, flow and absolute positioning. So the normal flow, relative positioning, floating a box, absolute positioning, and layer representation. Okay, and then layer presentations here. Specifying the stack level of C index property here. Interesting. Okay. Specifying the stack level, the C index property, and then the text direction. Very useful, very, very interesting here. And I know that this might be very heavy to digest, but the whole point of this is to get myself familiar with this. I don't need to memorize all of this. I just need to understand the structure here. So this is visual formatting here. It's describing things like how these elements is going to be organized exactly based on boxes to represent those on the visual screens, and how you're going to control those box generation. All right, all of those boxes are generated, right? Block, inline, and wrong, and then how they now fits into a context or to a formatting context. So whether it is the normal flow or if this is the positioning scheme, right? And in this positioning, you have now relative, you have absolute, you have sticky, fixed, and static here. Got it. And then how you now in the position layout, how you can now layer in content or layer presentations to show that on top of that, and how this content is going to be present, or the text direction here. And then you have the visual formatting models in detail, right? Things like definition of containing block, content width property, calculating width and margins, and all of this for inline and block level, floating, absolute, inline block, minimum and maximum. Okay, minimum and maximum width would mean width and max width. So here describing is the algorithm here, right? Very, very, very interesting here. Makes a ton of sense. Okay, content height and the height property, calculating heights and margins, right? And the minimum and maximum height. Minimum and maximum height. So he's describing is the box, how this box is calculated, how the dimensions are calculated, whether it is by the width and by the height. Interesting here, the width and the height, and how that is going to be calculated, and how that affect is the margin, how that affect is the flow layer or the positioning layer. Interesting. Maximum and minimum heights, right? Inline height calculations and stuff like this. So you also have the visual effects, overflow and clipping, all right? Overflow property and clipping here. Generated content automatically numbering. Okay, generated content automatic numbering and lists. Got it. The before and after, the content property. Okay. Page media. Okay, so page media, paper, transparency pages that are displayed on the computer screen differ from continuous media in that the content of the document is split in one or more discrete pages, like this. And how this is going to be organized. The user agent is responsible for transferring the page boxes to a document into real sheets, where the document will ultimately be rendered paper, transparent, and screen. Transferring one page box to one sheet. Transferring two page box to both sides in the same sheets. Transferring M, transferring one, and so on and so forth. Okay, this is for print media. Then I look at the colors and background, something that I'm quite familiar with, right? Particularly is the type of colors, values that I can use in 2026. The fonts, what are the fonts here? The text, okay, the text alignment here, and the tables. Introduction to tables, CSS tables, columns, tables in visual formatting, visual layouts of table, borders, and things like that. And then you have now the user interface. Cursors, the cursor property, system colors, user preference for fonts, and dynamic outline. So this is part of the user interface in terms of how it's going to look like. So let's go to play with this real quick, right? Over the entire document. I want to the cursor. I want the cursor here, right? To be one of those possible values. A crosshair. I can say crosshair, right? So now it becomes the pointer here. This is styling, interesting. Or pointer or move. Interesting move, right? So you're gonna style this, right? Or move resize. Interesting. You can set AC resize, for example, and this is how it's going to show this cursor text as text to highlight this as a part of a text. All right, so weight, even for weight, all right, and progress, right, is the same, and help, or you can retrieve is a cursor from a designated URI to show that here. Interesting. Okay, and then you have now the system colors. So now my cursors is only okay, so my cursor is now like that. I don't want to be that. I want to go back to the original, right, as a cursor only. System color here, active border, and all the possible color values here, or the system color where I'm currently at, right? User preference for fonts. Okay, please consult the font property, which is exploring is the font spec, right? That's interesting. Take me to font here. Okay, makes a ton of sense. Okay, and what's the other one? Outline color, outline style, outline width. So yeah, this is the user interactions, user preference for fonts, dynamic outline. Okay. So at times, style sheet author may want to create outline around visual objects such as buttons, active, form field, image maps, etc. And then you have now this. So, okay, and then you can magnify here. The CSS working groups consider the magnification of a document, of portion of a document should not be specified through style sheet. User agent may support such magnification in different ways. So all of this was just to expose to the source of truth, right? Oh my God, got it. So finally, to what is relevant in today's video, okay? Yes, and that is expose myself to this spec, right? Expose myself to this spec on what is this, and then going to the learning the fundamentals, right? Which is you might read the CSS design principles of what this thing is all about, right? And the processing model here. And next, read all the CSS 2.1 chapter 1, right? Here to kind of understand the basic notions of the spec, right? So again, it's just to, if I go back to the index, this is about the 2 CSS spec, but I want to look at the content, and that is exactly in looking at this about the spec.css 2.1, and it's to understand this notion here. Okay, got it. If I continue to look at this and then read carefully the following CSS spec sections, since the concepts in these sections are crucial to understand the rest of the spec. Cascading and inheritance, particularly value processing and defaulting, right? CSS values and units, display intro, CSS display glossary, the CSS box model section, the CSS, the viewport, the CSS sizing, right? And how this is going to be calculated, these boxes, how it's going to be calculated, right? The CSS sizing terminology with an inline size, with a block size. Interesting, very, very interesting. And the CSS writing modes as well. Holy moly. So okay, text flow, or the exactly. How this content is going to be present, whether it's a writing mode or not. And then you have this CSS writing mode abstract box terminology here. Okay, so you may need to refer back to them as you decipher particularly cryptic part of the standard, right? So again, one of them is what the standard says, and the other is what the implementator of its standards actually build. That'll be all for today's video. Take care. Bye bye.